Hey guys, what's up? It's me, Pagey, here once again with another video on just the CW as a whole. And it's very interesting because we're actually not by myself today. I almost started the video without introducing him. That would have been rude, but we're going to keep going. So I'm joined by DJ Eric. Eric's Reloaded. How you going, Eric?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Hopefully you're comfortable in that chair. Anyway, so yesterday from when we're recording this video, Riverdale ended after I think 7 seasons. I think it was 7 seasons that Riverdale went on for. Obviously, it's ended in a very weird period, like towards the end of August. You don't really see network shows end then, but of course, CW had a weird airing schedule, I guess, because of how it's running nowadays. But it's ended after 7 years. I haven't watched it since like season 3, and that was like pretty much because I was bored and needed a Netflix show to binge. Nothing really. I always knew it was a weird show because Archie Comics is weird as hell. They've had crossovers with like Punisher and like I think not Walking Dead, but they've done like zombies and stuff like that. It's a weird ass like universe. So the show was always going to head down that path, though it started very grounded. But with the end of Riverdale, it not only comes the end of a show that's run for 7 years, and obviously a universe itself, which had 2 other shows connected to it, in the Sabrina show on Netflix and that other show, whatever it was called, Betty Boop, whatever it was called.
Yeah, I don't remember, but yeah, I remember Sabrina stuff.
Something else. There's another show set in New York. It ends not just that, but it also ends an era for television, in my opinion, and not just on the CW, but I think like that era of television over, starting from like the mid 2010s into this current day is now over because The Flash ended. Obviously, it had some stuff around COVID-y times end as well. And even in regards to like the shifting from like even like an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. from like ABC and going over where now we're like fully MCU on the DC on Disney Plus, might I say. That's over. Like that's over. Right. And the big thing with that is that I don't think we're going to see anything like that again, whether it's on the CW, like just on the CW, but anywhere else. Like that type of like run of network shows that sort of had that, not a formula, but you sort of knew what you were going to get on the CW, whether it was for good or for bad. I was like, well, I know I'm going to get this, which might excite me, like a cliffhanger or something like that, an interesting plot line, which might be a bit zany and weird, but I also might get some crap romantic subplot, which you might be in for, but a lot of time you might not be in for.
Oh, I love it. I love that stuff. My favorite stuff on the show. So,
but that's it. I don't think you're going to get that on network TV at all, at least from what we know. Who knows what the writer's strike will do? Maybe streaming services will die. So I might head to church and pray for that. That might be a good thing.
Back to network TV. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe if we watch The Chosen on the CW, maybe our prayers will. Maybe I don't know. Maybe they should actually start advertising like that. That might be a way to get people to watch that. But that's it. So one thing I wanted to ask you, and it's a pretty simple thing, and people can also like chime in the comments as well. What's one thing you'll remember of that golden age of the CW specifically? What's one thing that you go like that? It could be a show. It could just be the general feel of it. What's one thing that you think back and go, that's probably my golden highlight of my time watching the CW consistently?
Oddly enough, it was the time waiting between like big moments. Like, you would get like a mystery and then you'd get like, 6 episodes and then you go on like a 4-week mid-season break or a 6-week mid-season break. And you'd always get that episode that would end on like this amazing cliffhanger. And then we get like a month and a half to sort of try and put the puzzle pieces together and figure out what's going on with our characters. And then dealing with what leaks we get and trying to figure out how the leaks, connect with what's going to happen in the season. Streaming service will make that impossible. I don't think we'll ever have the leaked set photos connecting with, having that anticipation about a mystery. Because if you drop a whole season all at once, like a la Netflix, it doesn't trend like that. It doesn't do anything.
No,
it doesn't feel the same. I don't even like reviewing stuff if it drops the whole season in one go. Like I really don't. So the era of the week-to-week stuff, some still do it. Obviously, Disney Plus does it. I think Paramount Plus still does it a little bit. Some stuff on HBO Max, they'll do it as well. But it doesn't have the same feeling as like network TV, like waiting for that show to come out. So everybody watches it at the same time. That's another thing. Like knowing that it comes on at this exact time, everybody is watching it. And right after that hour is done, we're going to be running to talk about it. And I think that's over. I don't think we're going to have that anymore. So
yeah. I agree with you in that sense of like the where it'd almost be like a year-round thing. Like it wouldn't end, like because you'd have the seasons play out, it'd end, you get that month and a half of like, ooh, where could things go from there? And then Comic-Con would roll around, or they start filming the next season, and then trailers start coming out. It was almost like this like endless cycle of discussion At least, worthwhile discussion for the most part, pretty much year round for the most part.
Mhm.
But one thing I think, if I think of a highlight from it that I think, oh, that was really cool when it happened, I think it was 1 year. I think it was only 1 year specifically. And I think it was I want to say it was like season 4 or 5 of The Flash. Like, this is when it happened. But it was like every night was one show. It wasn't like you didn't get the double billing stuff, which in my opinion,
Except Friday. I think there was nothing on Friday, right?
yeah, but I think it was like Sunday to Thursday there was one DC TV show per day. And there was no double billing. I hated double billing. I still do. I think it actually affects ratings.
I think it hurt the shows. We could argue that might have hurt their ratings.
I think it hurt something like Batwoman and Legends, to be completely honest, specifically. But you had like Sunday was Supergirl, and I think Thursday was Arrow, or maybe it was Black Lightning or something. But you'd have like Supergirl, Legends, Flash, then like Arrow or Black Lightning. It'd be like 5 days. And then when that rolled around to crossover periods, it flowed through seamlessly in that period. I think that might have been the year of like Crisis on Earth X, maybe, because I have a feeling that was 4 nights in a row. So that's the thing when I think of like a highlight is probably that, the like that week thing there, and also just like the whole year round thing as well. But obviously that's more specifically to the Arrowverse. But when like I hardly watched anything, like the only show I think I watched from beginning to end that was a CW show that wasn't Arrowverse was iZombie. I think it was the only other show I watched.
The Arrowverse had like that MCU magic where you felt like you had to at least be aware of what's going on in the other shows, and I think that did help a lot. Even the disconnected shows, some people would tune in just in case. Are we going to get a crossover this week? Is it going to happen? It was magical. It really was. I don't think we'd ever had anything like that ever on network television.
And we never had and never will after it.
Right.
The closest that's come to it is maybe what like ABC was trying to do with some of those Marvel shows, which then went over to like the Hulu shows as well.
Yeah.
But it just never really that was called like the worst period possible.
Yeah.
They just
I will say that the Netflix Marvel universe was close with like Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, all that. But it was never at the height of like the CW shows.
It goes back to a point you said with the streaming where they drop all the seasons at once. It was hard to make any sort of like major connections there. You couldn't have like a week where each of them got an episode and then there was a Defenders thing at the end. Like they just didn't do
because
that.
You don't know what order people are watching it in. That was the problem. On network television, you can control how something is released. So
Lord the Chosen, the streaming services make at least most of them die because they're ruining television. But anyway, we should know that Superman and Lois is probably the last thing that we're both going to be watching on the CW, unless I know you like The Chosen, but joking.
Look, if Superman and Lois moved somewhere else, I'd follow it. Like, that's
I probably wouldn't. Yeah, you wouldn't pay attention at all to it, but to the CW. But Superman and Lois is probably the last stake. It's the last thing it's like it's like a restaurant. There's like one thing that they do that you like, and they slowly bring down the menu. So with that, what is your highlights from the CW time, or specifically the Arrowverse? A good time watching the CW, saying it's most likely coming to an end over the next year or two, most likely.
My highlights, probably the crossover stuff. I think the crossover stuff was the most fun because that first, we obviously had the Invasion crossover, which was like a mini crossover, really. Then we started getting the big ones like the Crisis stuff and things like that. And it was so unique. It was like every year we could look forward to like a 3 to 4 hour movie of our Arrowverse characters, because essentially that's what it is. They're movies in a season where all of our characters come together. They gave us more Justice League movies than we ever got out of the DCEU. More characters that actually had stories that mattered. You know what I mean? Like, so you didn't have to worry about whether, they had enough time to tell the story of the Flash or Supergirl or Green Arrow, because we had them already. We knew those characters. So they came together in these group projects and these mini movies. And again, it's like TV magic. Greg Berlanti and everybody involved with it, all the individual showrunners making this work. Obviously it's like spaghetti now because everything is sort of in different places and it makes it hard to watch the crossovers. But back when they were on TV, it was beautiful. That was probably my highlight.
And you had to bet. Yet, like you said, I think you said in your last point, like you tuned up, you showed up at 8 p.m. Eastern or whatever it was, and you're like, you had your Red Vines. I know Twizzlers. Which one's the crap one? I'm not too sure. You had them, and you just were stoked to watch. Whether it was 2 crossover episodes back to back, or it was Sunday through to Wednesday or whatever it was. You just knew what you were going to get and you're going to have fun with it. And I think that sort of like led up to like even like the Christ and Infinite Earths one, when like the Flash crossover thing, like the two Flashes met and stuff like that, and like Twitter exploded because it was one thing that people just were like,
I mean,
what
we
the hell?
got the monitor and the anti-monitor on TV, like,
Yeah,
and it was good.
yeah,
That's the other thing. It was wild. We got the return of Brandon Routh Superman.
yeah.
We got John Wesley Shipp back as the 89/90 Flash. Just they did things that we would have never have seen ever anywhere else.
It's always like, it always rubs me the wrong way when I see people complaining on Twitter. Like I'm not going to name the person, but I always see someone say like the Arrowverse did nothing progressive for DC. I'm like, most people know DC characters because of the Arrowverse, because
it was accessible for everybody.
No one's seen the movies.
well, that's also it's
or they're just Batman and Superman, or they're just Batman and Superman.
Yeah, but if you live in the United States, you got it for free. You were getting premium like crossover shows with superheroes and all that for nothing. You just had to tune in and watch it.
And internationally, it was on Netflix, and most people had Netflix, so it wasn't on like this like subsidiary random streaming service. It was on the biggest one and only real one at the time.
And I stand by this. I don't think we would have had the gritty, modern, like street level superhero stuff we have without Arrow.
Yeah,
Arrow pretty much established that, I think.
Yeah,
Daredevil was a product of that, basically.
Yeah, or in the showrunner for Daredevil has said that. So you literally can't work your way out of that one. But we worked through the highlights, had some fun there. Low lights, and I say low lights because it could be like tongue in cheek and stuff like that. Do you have any low lights around your time watching the CW with specific shows or just as a whole? I will mention one, and I have another one. But my first one, just a bit of a funny one. Watching Swamp Thing on the CW was the stupidest thing I've ever seen, because like they would randomly just bleep swear words, but not bleep them. They're just like the audio would just cut out. So even if like the surrounding noise would just be like, "Oh my god." And then
they also had to shorten the episodes because the episodes weren't designed to be.
And they just go to ads randomly. Yeah. They just cut in the middle of a scene to go to an ad because they have to fit in like every X amount of minutes. They have to go to an ad. So Swamp Thing on the CW, no, it didn't work.
That's a tough one. I guess for me, probably the lowest point on the CW would have been. Well, I have two actually, but probably the first one I can remember is falling out of love with Legends of Tomorrow. That's probably the biggest one for me, because I really thought season 1 was okay. Like I didn't think it was great. It was okay. But then seasons 2 and then most of season 3, I was like, this is amazing. We got Legion of Doom. We got Matt Lesher's reverse flashback. We had a lot of really cool stuff. And then it just went off the rails. And it went so far that there was no way to fix it. So for me, that was probably the biggest bummer. And then watching things fall apart, like with the shows not continuing on. I think once we lost Arrow as a show, the writing was on the wall for the rest of the Arrowverse. That was kind of the foundation of the Arrowverse. And I think if Arrow would have continued, I think other shows probably would have continued too. But that going away opened the door for like Supergirl to wrap up and Black Lightning to wrap up and all of those things.
Yeah, well, that was sort of like Arrow ended, and like 2020 gave the birth of like HBO Max and stuff, and that was just sort of like with Warner Brothers and I think even Paramount came out like later that year or something like that. So like just things started to like sever, and ties were severed and stuff like that, and like they were planning obviously like this next saga in the Arrowverse, or at least on DC on the CW, and like a formula of just issues.
I mean, they established everybody on the same Earth for a reason.
Yeah,
they brought them all together for a reason. So
yeah, it was just like bad, pretty much just unfortunate. I don't want to say bad timing because I don't even know it's their fault, but it's just unfortunate timing around with different things and sometimes externally with what was going on. So I do agree with that. My other low light is just the divisiveness that you always got. Like you think you have a good take, and it's like, yeah, I think I'm right with this, and you post it online. It's like, you're an idiot. You're an idiot. What a stupid take. I've had my fair few share of those ones, and I'm sure you have as well.
Well, the one thing I hated about that was just the idea that we had to always be positive about every single thing that happened. And
was there, you had to be overly positive or overly negative. You couldn't be
right.
There was no nuance.
There's no nuance, right? Yeah. So like there were times where I would be like, oh, I love this episode of The Flash. And then we'd get a week where I'd be like, I hate this episode. And in the episodes that I really love, where I'm like, oh, it's a 10 out of 10, people be like, oh, you're shilling because it's not a 10 out of 10. You overlooked this, you didn't call out that, you didn't nitpick this, you know what I mean? And then the weeks where I'd be like, oh, I gave it like a 6 out of 10. They're like, oh, why are you watching it? Stop watching it if you hate it. And it's just these extreme, opposite ends. And yeah.
You can't have Eric, it's 2023. Wake up. You can't have an opinion. Are you serious? Wake up.
What was I thinking?
Yeah, obviously not much. Idiot. Yeah. Anyway, but to finish off the video, I think this is a pretty simple one. A pretty simple question. We won't go with the worst one. We'll just go with one. What is your favorite CW show, whether it's in the Arrowverse or externally as well? I have 2 options for each.
I mean, it's pretty easy for me, even with all the ups and downs I had with it. I think The Flash is still my favorite CW show. If I had to pick some like honorable mentions, there's a couple of them that I think I'd put up there. Obviously Stargirl, I think was really strong. All 3 seasons of Stargirl. I really love that show. I had that was probably the most fun I had watching shows on the CW, Stargirl, because I think that show just knew how to nail everything that it was doing. Arrow, obviously. Arrow is the one that, alongside the Flash. And because it's still around, I don't know if it counts, but I think Superman and Lois also has been pretty much consistent all the way through. Yeah. So
you could say that Superman and Lois is bright times, a bright spark in dark times in regards, because it was airing when all these other things were either getting cancelled or the CW was in that middle of that sale, and it sort of fought through all that. So you can say like that bright spark in the dark times. In regards to mine, I think it's between Flash and Arrow. I always like change my answer because it just sort of depends like how I'm thinking on the day. I'd probably maybe in regards to like sentimental, because it's more recent, it's probably the Flash, but they're pretty close, Flash and Arrow. Like Arrow started it and Flash ended it. So in regards to the Arrowverse, outside of that, I mean, I loved iZombie as a show. I'd always recommend iZombie to anyone. That's just a really good show.
What about Naomi?
Do I look dumb? No, this is smart questions in this one, Eric, not dumb ones. God, I just had flashbacks to that camping episode in Naomi, which, God, I'm still recovering from that one. That was awful. Another one is The 100, but I never finished it, but I think like the first 2 to 3 seasons of that show are like peak.
I didn't finish it either, but yeah, the first couple seasons were
the first few seasons of the show are like season 1 is like 10 out of 10 in my opinion, and season 2 is pretty much just as good. So at least early seasons of The 100 as well. So, but outside of that, I never explored any like outside like I watched like the first couple seasons of Riverdale, but I was always just like Arrowverse mainly the CW, and then there was just something that sort of caught your eyes, like, oh, I might give that a go, and then you like it. But also, there's a lot of stuff that was just 1 season and that's gone, just because it wasn't very good. There was a decent amount of those shows, but yeah, that's probably where I lie. But that's probably I only time I ever watched Supernatural was when it first aired back in the day alongside Smallville, because on Australian TV they'd have Smallville on it, like I guess it was 7:30 or something,
and then Supernatural
an hour later, and that was the main episode I remember from Supernatural was an episode where a guy is like, I guess, eating his kid's Halloween candy, and there's a razor blade in it or something like that, and his mouth starts bleeding. I think he dies. Don't know. Could you die from that? I guess there's blood loss, but we're getting too specific about. Let's not test that. Let's not test that.
No, but I will say it lasted.
Yeah, don't do that at home.
It lasted for 15 seasons, so it did something.
Yeah,
right. I don't know.
Obviously had that fan base and enough to bring people back consistently. But that's where I end the video. So thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, it'd be awesome. You could drop a like and show support. Let me know in the comment section down below your overall. I don't know, what do they say at a funeral? Like your commiserations. I don't know what it'd be like. Just I don't know, because it's pretty much that's, as I said, with the Riverdale ending, it's the end of the era, and like Superman's going to like just sort of finish that off in regards to most of us watching. But leave your, highlights, lowlights, favorite CW shows, one thing you remember from the golden age in the comments section down below. If you haven't checked out Eric's channel, his link will be in the description down below. And of course, if you are new to this channel, be sure to subscribe, and we'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.